I will now invite all of the other panelists, and I hope that you warmly welcome them. So Director of Eco Agros, Virginia Lukshiene, is with us as well. Do pick one of the chairs and we give you a big round of applause. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Director of the Lithuanian Farm Quality Agricultural Cooperative, Mindaugas Masiulevičius. Welcome. Project Manager and Senior Expert at AgriFood, DIH AgriFood Croatia, Krešimir Kovac. Welcome. Wolfer Team Ambassador and Strategic Senior Scientist on Digital Innovation in Agri-Food. I forgot how to pronounce it properly. Economic Research, Wageningen University and Research. Dr. Jacques Wolfert. Welcome. And I want to bring us back to the question that Vilma raised about the balance between meeting legal requirements and sustainability. And I thought that maybe we would structure this panel in the way that I will ask each of you to come up with one example from your experience where you feel, as Vilma said, the correct wording was that, you know, basically the legislation kind of goes against sustainability. So what was, in your experience, what was the most maybe absurd example that you would have come across in your work? And then we will also maybe, I will ask you for an example of greenwashing that you have come across as well. And then we will try to look for solutions, how European policies and Horizon Europe projects, for example, can support sustainable innovation in agri-food, the importance of partnerships, everything that could solve all of these, how shall I call them, imbalances that Vilma has been speaking about. So many acts, legal acts are outdated. Maybe each of you could say from your perspective, what is the most outdated legal acts that you have come across with? Virginia, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you. I am representing organic sector. We are control authority. We certify organic farms.
Yes, and if you could say a couple of words, each of you, about specifically what you do and what your organization does, that would be good too. So thank you for starting off.
And when I think about your question, I would say that we are lucky because organic sector is very well regulated, because we don't have any like gray gaps, you know, between the terms or understandings or how it works. And also we have this law, law regulation on this. And we would say that organic is based on the three main pillars: on the EU regulation, on the certification, and labeling, of course. And for the consumers, label is the clear sign and picture. If they are prefer to buy organic, they have an organic product in general. But when we are talking about different terms and some discussions on this, we have always agroecology, we have regenerative agriculture, we have sustainable agriculture, and you know, when it's not regulated in the law, when it's not discussed with all the EU member states, we don't know what it is. We don't have any specific term for the agriculture about these terms, and we don't know how we can operate them. And then we create like kind of greenwashing, because when we know here is organic, it's okay. But when we're talking about other terms and they are not very well described in the regulation, we don't know what we are talking about. And here we have a lot of like gray gaps to make a greenwashing. This is like my opinion.
Thank you. Mindaugas.
Yes, like I'm organizing mobile farmers markets for 15 years, 16 years, all over Lithuania, so direct supply chains and everything. But I used to be a member of European Economic and Social Committee for 10 years, and all those reports that we were producing on the sustainable food systems and bioeconomy was kind of part of my portfolio. This is I was involved with. And look at the law is very, how to say, from one point of view, it's simple, but from the other point of view, it stops everything. And I fully agree now with our colleague here, because first of all, if you look into bioeconomy, if we want to boost that, right, you mentioned sugar beet plants where the sugar is produced. So the outcome of that, after all the process, is sugar beets, the substitute, which you cannot use for producing energy. And biogas plant would be a fantastic way to use that because you are getting fertilizers, organic fertilizers, you can get the biogas itself, you can be sustainable. It's three types: environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable. But because of the law, you are not allowed to do so because apparently you can use that sugar beet residues as a feed for your animals, and it doesn't matter if you don't have animals in that area, then the law is not allowing you. So this is another way of showing how not clever we are with our laws and with our regulations. So I would say what we have to do is just to rethink the whole chain. We have to rethink in our own mentality how we look into circular bioeconomy, into sustainability aspect. And for me, the most important is even if there is a smell in the countryside, I am a great believer that it has to be a smell in the countryside. The animals are living down there. And remember all those funny things that in Paris, was it President Macron, he ruled that animals are allowed to live in the countryside. And we know stories like in popular touristic areas where people from the capital, from Vilnius, goes to some rural area and they're saying, look at your chickens are making noises, or your cow is being milked and it's not allowing me to sleep properly. So kind of we're getting a lot of these nowadays. So I think the more we discuss and the more we open up what it is bioeconomy, that there is a circularity, that everything is linked to each other, we can gain as a society. We have organic fertilizers, we have our food. Health aspect is very important. Healthy food, because not every food is good. The healthy aspect food is very good. And a lot of different approaches, omega-free, all the functional food and everything kind of science are making a lot of new developments in that field. Every single aspect of the everyday farming, we can get a lot of bioeconomy application, which is being developed as we speak now. And of course, the law has to be, changed accordingly.
So, for example, if you come across with something, as you refer to, is not clever, you say that we have to rethink the whole system, right? But but when you have one specific example, when you have the one you have told us about, do you do anything about it? Do you go lobby? Do you talk to anyone? Are there small steps that we could also make, or shall we just wait for the whole framework to be changed?
This is actually a tricky one because that one is due to RED II directive, and there is a clause that's something that you can use for feed, you cannot allow it for energy. But then again, let's be creative over here, and I would say the flexibility mechanism should be involved, and especially knowing that such a big industry is behind that. It's not only about the farmers. We're discussing big multinational industrial plants, and we have to change that somehow. It's not that we want to starve our population to death. It's not about that. And it's not that we want to waste that feed. It's differently. We want to use that to produce and to have a social benefit. So I would say we need some time, but we're getting there. And a lot of new ideas are coming, floating around. And for me, the very interesting aspect in this whole debate is the debate between NGOs who are very enthusiastic about the protection of the nature, and sometimes a lot of what they're trying to say not every time is scientifically proven, and there is some sort of a mismatch with a farmer's attitude, and farmers sometimes are blamed for something that they are not doing. So it's also we're in the middle of the societal change, and I hope that as a farmers we'll find the proper words how to communicate the science and how to communicate the food, the feed, the sustainability aspect.
But are you saying the mismatches between NGOs and farmers?
Yes, yeah. Definitely remember all the, all the protest actions and everything.
Yeah.
And even there are people who are saying that animals are killing our planet. I hope we are not. When we're breeding that, I know this young farmer sitting over here, he's doing very well actually. So I hope that we can agree on that. But you have to put everything in. If you have a biogas facility, so you're even saving the planet, I would say. So it depends on how you look into that.
Thank you for now. Krešimir, give us a couple of words of understanding what you do and what is the most absurd piece of legislation that would go the most against the sustainability practices that you have.
Okay, so well, I come from Digital AgriFood Croatia, and we try, that researchers and the industry, they do not speak the same language. So we try to translate the researchers' language and incorporate it, implement their solutions into the industry. So we speak a lot with the researchers, university, and try to replicate these innovative projects, not only the research papers, but also implement it in the field. So we work a lot with the industry, a lot with the digitalization and new technology in the agri-food and aquaculture sector. So what we saw on the field, it's such a complex question, because when you're talking about what you said, when you're talking about bioeconomy and circularity and sustainability, it's such a fancy world, and the industry is not holding the grasp on it. Because what we see on the field, we as a human, we are quite linear, and when the farmer is having some monoculture crop, he's just the interest is to get as much yield as possible, and he's just focused on that. But now we are slightly, as a society, we are approaching our own limits. So we must make a societal change, not only for the farmers, not only for the government, for the institution, for the industry.
But what kind of societal change are you talking about?
We need to understand that nature is not linear. It's a very complex ecosystem. Yes, but we as a people are linear, and we need to learn to think in ecosystem way. And it's, for one farmer, there are tens of thousands of parameters affecting their crop. So we need to take into consideration the animals, the crops, the forestry, the aquaculture sites near the land. So everything is connected, and that's the perfect scenario and platform to use all these digital tools and AI and whatever fancy industry you want, to try to replicate the ecosystem and implement in the mines, not only industry, but all other, quadruple helix system, whatever you call it. So from the farmers, the big industry players, the governmental organization, the NGOs trying to solve everything. So it's not something that you can tackle piece by piece. It should be very broad societal change, and I think it's a very long process, but the nature will force us to do what it takes to get back to the nature roots. And you were asking about what's the most absurd.
Yes.
So many of them. Because it's such a broad question, you cannot even connect all the dots. Let's say currently in Croatia, you don't have any regulation for biocomposting. So in Croatia, by the law currently, because it's in the bureaucratical procedures, you cannot produce any compost. So you have some biocompost. We are a very developed tourist country. It's a huge amounts of biocompost, and you need to take them to the waste, because it's a waste. Yeah. It's not what you said, it's not a product. Or we need to export them to Austria to get off the waste label and to give the product label and then import it from Austria. So that's only one example of how crazy this whole situation.
It is very interesting to hear that, and when Vilma was saying that we will have to that we will have to do a lot of changes, for example, fully recyclable packaging by 2030 and many more, does that then mean we will have to eventually get rid of all of these nonsenses in our national system to comply with what the European Union is expecting us to do?
Yeah, of course. So we can, pretend that it's not going to be, but I think it's more clever to prepare for now, because the changes are really coming and we will have to match the requirements. Yeah. And sometimes it's really crazy with those, as you say, and those stories are really demotivating me, and I always invite the representatives from Ministry of Environment, from municipalities and businesses, just let's sit around the table and discuss. So what's the point? Maybe we can look for more clever solutions, like, for example, because you asked about examples, yes, so maybe another example that came to my head, in the food factory, they're producing food, yeah, and they have these plastic sort of containers which are left when you buy mayonnaise or another sauces, yeah, and you use in your production. So these plastic containers was taken home by employees in order to put the seeds in, because it was spring, and you can have the plant growing, and it's nothing bad in it. Is it dangerous? Is it, damaging the environment? But then the inspector of the department environmental, he said it's a breach of the law because it's a plastic waste. You should give it to the plastic waste management company, generate the CO2, transportation, and so on. So sometimes I think we need really, as Mindaugas said, some really clear, mind and not so bureaucratical attitude to the situations. And of course, each situation is different as well.
Clear mind, societal change, being less bureaucratic, these all sounds like really big things, and we'll touch upon them after I will ask Mr. Schacht to also give the most absurd, if that's the correct term, a piece of regulation that you have come across with.
Well, absurd example of regulation. But let me first introduce myself.
Yes,
yeah,
please.
so I'm a crop scientist by background, so I'm a researcher. But nowadays I'm very much into applying digital technologies and data into agriculture. So working a lot with the stakeholders like farmers, technology companies, and to bring them together. Yeah, to connect that also to the regulation is that I noticed that especially for farmers, a lot of regulation is made, setting all kind of thresholds that they have to comply with. But what is lacking most of the time is that, yeah, they don't get the instruments, the knowledge, how to reach them. And that is where we like to work with them, and also acknowledge that there are always diverse pathways to reach them. So I think along with the regulation, you should also try to stimulate innovative capacities of farmers, but also the whole ecosystem around it. Yeah, and I think you asked also for a more absurd example of greenwashing. I was thinking about that. I think in general, at the agricultural side, so farmers are not so much to blame, but one thing came to my mind is that nowadays some are talking about carbon farming, so trying to capture carbon. And as a crop scientist, I know the photosynthesis process is capturing CO2 from the air, so they are with the crops that you are capturing CO2. And then one day I noticed in the fields that they were advertising, hey, we are catching a lot of CO2, so we are doing a great job. But yeah, okay, the crop that is there on the field will be harvested at one time, and then the CO2 is going back into the air most of the time. So maybe that is one of the few examples yeah, at the farming level where you could say, well, maybe that was a kind of greenwashing.
And when you say that we need to stimulate innovative capacities of farmers and the whole ecosystem, is there a more specific way how we do that?
Yeah, I think that you should work on innovation projects where you bring the ecosystem together in the right way. And through our series of projects, I'm working a lot on European projects, but with local use cases. And I'm also very glad that we established these digital innovation hubs in a project which was called Smart Agri Hubs. So there we established 300 or over 300 digital innovation hubs, which are local organizations. So they work at the regional level. So they know the innovators, they know the end users such as farmers. They also have good relationships with investors. So they can bring everything together. So that's, I think, one of the main conditions, that you have these local digital innovation hubs. But at the same time, yeah, try to connect them also in at least a European network, and we're also working to have a global network. And because if you work on a local level, yeah, maybe you don't have access to the state-of-the-art knowledge. Maybe there is some specific knowledge that is not available in your region or even not in your country. So there we try to create networks, also supported by knowledge platforms or portals, so that you can have access also to that. And then you can also stimulate that by creating network events, also like this one, where also a lot of these projects are coming together. And last thing is that what I also learned, I also came from a, let's say, more technical background, looking at innovation from a more technical perspective, but I learned throughout the years that it is very much important that you also look at the business aspects, first of all, of innovations. So not if it is only working as a technical prototype, but is there also a shared business model for different stakeholders? And also in the last years, we put a lot of more emphasis also on possible social and ethical issues that come around with innovation. And I think if you want to make progress on innovation, you have to address all of these aspects at the same time.
When you talked about greenwashing, I was wondering if we have any methods, mechanisms of identifying and avoiding greenwashing practices in the agri-food sector. Who would want to take this one? Croatia?
Yeah, maybe. We don't have it. We could have it, but we don't have it. You know, you are talking about the greenwashing, and we now try to implement the digital technology to stop it. But we have digital technologies for decades, like RFID codes or QR codes are, on the market for, decades, and we are not implementing the solutions properly. And the thing is, it should be done by somebody. It certainly won't be done by industry. So it certainly won't be done by the consumers, because they have the need, but they will not solve the problems. So for the greenwashing, the only solution is try to agitate and lobby at the governmental agency on the EU level to try to implement the comprehensive solutions. And even when the market is regulated, you have the various, bad practices from big players, big companies that are exploiting the gray zones from the law. That's why, once again, in order to implement it, not only governmental, but entire societal change must be done throughout the many course of years.
Does anyone?
I would like to extend that question a little bit further. It's not only about the greenwashing I would be worried about, but also, when Trump won the election, now it's very clear in the world that there will be this very enthusiastic guy who is going to say no more climate change, climate is not changing, and forget the emissions. Basically, this is what he says all the time. So in my head, it's not that, I would be looking for opportunities, the projects which are very clever, both economically, socially, and environmentally, and have that impact. So, okay, if he is very much against about putting some sort of regulation in the place, maybe we can sell the idea that it's economically beneficial. And there are so many good examples that we have to promote, and which has an even bigger impact. And I'm just trying to think over here. Our scientists sometimes, when discussing climate, now they're working with animal husbandry. And they're saying that this specific practice can gain you so much CO2 equivalent. But farmers who are using, sometimes they are not agreeing. But there are other techniques that you can use, and you can be a lot more efficient, and you can save a lot more. So I think for us now, that sustainability aspect, we have to remember and keep on coming back to that it's not only about the environment, but it has to be economically, socially, and environmentally sound. So in that case, you have a sustainable project. Once we're coming back to this level, I think it's going to be okay, and we have a lot better examples of in this field, and it will be a lot more promoted, this type of activities. Because, for example, even same animal husbandries, you need animals for your cash crops. You need the bacteria, you need the natural fertilizer, you need, I saw a gentleman here who is using the bacteria as a waste of fertilization. So it's a combination of different agricultural techniques. You need the crop rotation, it's not a rocket science, but you need to promote that farmers should be doing that. So once we have that on the ground, it makes perfect sense. And first of all, economical, social, and then of course, environmental.
But yeah, I think at the same time, so I'm coming from the Netherlands, where we have a very specialized way of farming. For example, we are very good in dairy farming, so we are producing a lot of milk. But yeah, that at the same time, we're also producing a lot of manure, also a lot of calves, so calf meat, for example. And I see that there is also some disbalance into that, because you are focusing so much on specialization. So that should also be better regulated, I think, at least at the national level, but yeah, also maybe at a more international level.
Is this correct? That's the question from the audience, that at the moment, organic farming system is the only greenwashing free and sustainable system in the agriculture? That is a very good question with a suggested answer, which you don't necessarily have to agree with. Anyone? Virginia?
Yes, because I think it's very clear, because I told before, it's regulated, it's absolutely transparent system, organic certification, and also all the structure in general. And I think organic is like an element of everything. You know, they have all these environmental things and sustainable agriculture things in one. They also take care about the rural people and development in the rural areas, and also protection of the consumers itself, because when we are talking about greenwashing, we always should think about consumer, about the final the people who are buying these products. And when we're talking, it's like, you know, it's a green, it's natural or something. So it's like we're misleading consumers, and we should think about them. So I think we have the solution, and we have to develop the solutions. It's very easy to find the new terms, I don't know, new trends or something, you know, that they are like, you know, like just stars and only for the short time. But as it was said in the previous, we should have like continuous things in our sectors, and we should think that we agreed that we will follow them for 5, 10, 15 years. So if we will have the plan for the future, it will help all of us and all the sector to maintain it, and also to protect from the greenwashing and other not the clear things.
Thank you so much. Environmental regulation seems to be very complex. Someone is asking, is there infrastructure to help agri-food companies and farmers deal with this regulation?
Well, maybe I can comment a bit. So there is no, unfortunately, some secret pills or really magic that you could really cope and follow the regulations, and they are changing actually very, very fast. Once I was counting the orders that Minister of Environment issued, I think it was 2023 last year, so he did it around 400 orders, so it means more than one order was issued during a day, despite of the holidays. So it's really it's really a lot of the regulation, but I would recommend actually to write inquiries, to follow the information from the governmental institutions, agencies. Also, there are many NGOs, some collective organizations that the same farmers are members maybe, so you can really get some useful advices from the associations that you are in as the members, and use that tool. But sometimes I also see like a negligence maybe from the businesses and the farmers, because they are also part of the system, yes, and the business. They say, oh, Vilma, I don't care. I mean, I have an accountant. She pays the invoices for some, let's say, packaging collective organizations. And really, environmental issues, Vilma, sorry, don't take it personally, but it's like 36 point in my priority list. Maybe not so low at these days, but 10 years or 15 years ago it was so, because first of all you have to profit, you have your margins to reach, you have your Excel sheets and so on. So this environmental is not so really interesting topic also for the business. And also ministry is saying as well that you're always moaning, you know, for the companies, for the private entities, moaning, criticizing, but please bring us a reasonable draft or suggestion how we should cope, how we should change, because it's easy to criticize, you know, but then what to do, how to find the solution. So there is always two sides of that problem.
Reasonable drafts, less bureaucracy, greenwashing, identifying platforms or mechanisms, continuous practices, societal change, clear mind. These are some of the ideas that we have put on the table. As a sort of a concluding comment, I would like to ask you, Mr. Shak, a more general question. How can European policies support sustainable innovation in agri-food, and what else can we do for these mismatches that we spoke about to disappear?
Yeah, I still would like to stress two things. I was also asking the question in the previous session, or maybe not a question, more a remark, that if we're talking about sustainable and for example also healthy food, so what is healthy food? I think we should not underestimate the role of that the consumers, you and me as consumers, should have. And I think it's very important that we also put some more emphasis, and then also maybe that can be stimulated by European national policies to educate also the consumers. So we are, for example, in our institute, also a group is working with young children to educate them on taste. What is good food? How does it taste? And then also, yeah, is it healthy? Is it sustainable? Those kind of things. So yeah, put some more emphasis also on the consumers' side. And at the same time, yeah, I think what I indicated, how can we create and stimulate innovation ecosystems so that work at a local level with local ecosystems of advisors, farmers, researchers, etc., but also to connect them into a European framework where also the more difficult questions on regulation, for example, can be addressed, that issues that on a local level cannot be solved, that you try to address them also to the policymakers, either in the national setting or more at the European level.
And when you say that more emphasis should be put on the consumer side, can consumers also somehow contribute to solving all of these legal nonsenses that Vilma has outlined, and in what ways?
Yeah, I think that consumers have a lot of power because each time they buy something, they vote. So if I give my vote for the, one kind of yogurt, so I vote for that, but not for the other. And actually, European Commission also made some kind of statistics and social analysis. They say like around 85% of consumers, they care about the product materials and how it was made, how it was projected, and so they really care. And I would say in many EU countries, maybe not so much in Lithuania, the consumers are really claiming their rights. They go to the consumer rights institutions and they are investing then greenwashing cases, settling the fines, maybe just the orders to take out that product of the market for now. But I would also recommend to be more active for consumers to really, care, search for information, and to have that power, to use that power correctly.
Yeah. Mindaugas, you just nodded
Yes.
your head, so I will allow you one
I think
final comment.
For me, a very important aspect over here was mentioned. If you involve the consumers, and I would hope that we're all clever consumers. So, for example, if I'm buying my cacao, I'm looking into indication that there was no deforestation.
Yeah.
But then, how many examples you have at our shows are full of the bad examples, and then as a consumer we're not doing anything. But we are demanding over here for local businesses to be more green and more strict, our own regulatory authorities. So I'm thinking we have to be, as a consumer, very clever over here, and we have to be not so demanding, but understanding, I would say, from that point of view. What comes to the third countries, we have to appreciate that they are lower standards. And this is the fact that in European Union, we have the highest ever standards, food safety, animal health, environmental. They are the most strict. They are costing us money. They're expensive to have. They're administrative. So from that point of view, I would prefer my local European food instead of very, very cheap imports from somewhere, I don't know. So this is good way of thinking, and this is helping that transition. And the last case, what we want to do, what we really want to do, we want to promote that idea of sustainability, not only within the European Union, but also into third countries. And with our purchasing power as a consumers, we can export those ideas. And for them guys to become, how can we stop them cutting their forest? The only way is not to buy from the cut forest. It's as simple as that. So let's be clever on that, and let's be open a little bit as a consumers, open minds.
With that, we will finish. We will thank you very much. Let's leave this room with more open minds, and let's try to open the minds of others as much as it is in our power. We will have one more presentation here, so do not start running away once we have applauded the panelists. But yes, this is the time when we thank the panelists of this discussion. Thank you so much. It was brilliant.